Hi, welcome to the TechHub.training solution video for the final challenge in the Python learning path document for logic, control flows, and loops. As with all challenges on our site, we hope that you will attempt to find your own challenge before watching these solution videos so that it is more beneficial to your learning. However, if you're having trouble finding a solution or if you've already found your own, then hopefully this video will be a benefit to you. After you have found a solution, we encourage you to reply to the challenge in the comments so that you can be a part of our growing community. So going into the code with this Jupyter Notebook file that you were given to download, you are given some specific instructions as to how this challenge is meant to be solved. Because this is at the end of the logic, control flow, and loops learning path for Python, we anticipate that you will use those concepts you learned in finding a solution. So you are given the instructions that you are working for a retail company and have been tasked with analyzing the sales data from different stores for the 2023 fiscal year. And so to create those sales, this first cell is given to you automatically, and you will learn eventually how to create all of this in Python, but it is not the focus of this challenge right now. So all you need to do is run the cell. And because this is randomly generated, you will see that the sales numbers will change every time you run it. So 1508 for January 1st, and then 1825 for January 1st, and that'll change every time you run that cell. It's important to know in Python the data that you're working with. So you know here that because of what's told to you, that the data is stored in a list of individual dictionaries, and that each dictionary has two keys, a date key and a sales key, and values for both. And the date key is going to be incremental from January 1st to December 31st, and then sales is going to be randomized. Those sales will be between $500 and $2,000, no matter what. And so knowing that information is important for creating the solution that you are asked in the next cell or cells. And so you are tasked with finding total sales, average sales, best day sales, and worst day sales for the whole year. Again, you'll be using loops to find the solution to that. First off is total sales. You will do that by initializing your variable and setting it to 0 for total sales, and then you will use a for loop. In this for loop, you will, remembering the syntax, do for and then your iterable item in sales data, which is a iterable list. So for item in your iterable list. And so you can see kind of the structure here in your data set. And for dictionaries, the way you access the specific key is by calling the key, and that'll give you the value returned automatically. And so what this line does is it says whatever our total sales is, reassign it with the sum of what total sales already is plus the current day and its associated sales. So 1825 plus the next iteration 1166 plus the next iteration 1345, so on and so forth. And that will get you your total. Next is average sales, which uses, after we assign it, that total sales variable that we just created, and then using this len function, which captures the entirety of items in the sales data list. And so that totals to 365. Next is probably the most difficult part, which is finding the best and worst selling days. The challenge behind this is that you need to find not only what the best and worst days sales are, but also what date that is. Each of these values is contained in a single dictionary item, and so you can't, if you're not careful with how you're using your iterable item, then you will not be able to access both the sales and date to capture those values. And so first we're going to initialize what those values are. Best day sales you can set to 0, and worst day sales right here, this is given as a hint. You can set this as float, open parens, apostrophe inf, apostrophe close parens, and that's positive infinity. And so what will happen is when your first day hits, whatever your first sale item is, that will automatically assign your best and worst day sale, and then anything better than that will increase this best day, and anything worse than that will decrease worst day. And then you want to assign best day and worst day to empty strings because they will hold those dates that are contained. And so the most important variable here is index. You set your index equal to 0 so that you can use it in your while loop. So you're saying while the index is less than the length of the sales data, then you're going to go through these iterations. And then like every while loop needs, so that you're not stuck in an infinite loop, you need to make sure that that variable you're using to iterate changes. So you're going to say index plus equals 1. So you start at 0, and then after it's through, it will change index to 1, and then after the next time, it'll change it to 2, until we hit 365, which is the number of items in the sales data list. So what happens is we need to use that while statement, and then to assign these is going to be in if statements. So if our sales data, and then here's where the index variable comes in that we just created. So when we call our list, we want to first say what day that we are on, and then we're going to call the proper key, similar to what we did in our total sales. And that will come in handy because later on in the if statement, if it matches this condition that we've set, which is the sales data at this position, right now it's 0, and that position's sales value is greater than the best day sales that we currently have stored, then we're going to say, okay, that best day sales is now that iteration's sales value. And then we're also going to say that the index, the position that we're on, is also going to store the date, the value that is associated with the date key. And so index makes sure that we maintain the position that we are in while we are iterating through the list, and can pull out both the date and the sales when appropriate. And so you'll do that for both best day sales and for worst day sales, and reassign them when the value for sales is either better or worse, respectively, for the values that were previously assigned to it. And then again, one more time, just because infinite loops are a big problem with while loops, make sure that you change your variable that you're using to iterate through the data set with, so that you do arrive eventually at an end to the loop. After that is pretty simple. We're going to print out each of our different variables, and we can use that using the print function, and combining that with strings to make it a prettier output. So I haven't ran this yet, since updating my randomized data. And so total sales is 465,890, and your average is going to likely be around $1,200, between 12 and 1,300. And then your best selling day, the day will be random, but the sales will be probably in the high 1900s. Worst selling day will probably be in the low 500s. So there it is. Hopefully this video solution is helpful to you and that you feel like you're starting well on your way to using Python like a master.